Look at verse 17. In John chapter 7, verse 17, Jesus proclaims that pure teaching, pure preaching, only the obedient and submissive can even know it's godly teaching. You got to be obedient to God and submitting to God to even recognize it. That's what he means when he says, he who has ears to hear, hear. He who has eyes to see, see. Because discernment hinges on willing to do God's will. We have to be obedient. We have to be submissive to God. And we're not good at that, right? We struggle with obedience. We struggle with submission. Submission is not an American word. We don't like that. John Wayne was never submissive. That's not how we become the greatest nation in the world and we're free and we're a world power, by submitting. That's what we say. We buy the lie of the enemy instead of saying, as a child of God, I'm to be obedient and submissive. Men, you are supposed to be obedient and submissive. Ladies, you are supposed to be obedient and submissive. Every generation is supposed to be obedient and submissive. You don't get to retire out of it. And you're not the exception, my friends. You got to be obedient and submissive to the will of God. And the will of God is one of those things. The will of God. When we're confronted with a horrible thing, we just say, oh, that must be the will of God. We approach the will of God like it's some kind of gray, oobly googly, timey-wimey, we can't really understand this. It's calculus written in Chinese. Not realizing, first, that the whole Bible, Genesis to Revelation, is not only a love letter to you and I, it's not only a proclamation of salvation, redemption history, but it also is a written will of God for humanity, for Utah, for Layton Hills Baptist Church, for me. And so you literally have a book dedicated to teach you the will of God. And if that wasn't clear enough, because we don't read it anyway, right? The will of God is articulated very clearly in 2 Bible verses. One passage, 2 verses. It literally starts with, the will of God is. Can't get much clearer than that. You know what I'm talking about? 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 verses 3 and 4 says this, for this is the will of God, your sanctification. Sanctification is godliness, is purity, is Christ-likeness. The will of God is to make you godly like Jesus. Progressive sanctification. We get better at it as we go. We face temptation, we sin, we build sanctification muscles in the process. This one gets even specific. For this is the will of God, your sanctification, your godliness, your holiness, your Jesus-likeness. That is, that you abstain from sexual immorality. The Greek word there is porno. That each of you know how to possess his own vessel in sanctification and honor. So God's will is specifically in 1 Thessalonians about your physical purity. Your purity as it relates to intimacy with the opposite gender. Purity. Right? It's huge. That's God's will. Talk about rebellion, right? Are you obeying and submitting? Are you obeying and submitting to God's will? If not, you can't even recognize pure, godly teaching and preaching. Your ears are closed. Your eyes are closed. It's all background noise. Only the obedient and the submissive can even make that discernment. I can't believe Jesus said that, but it's there. It's true.